I've been thinking about how analytic notions and models regarding conflict resolution might help us understand both the source and the future of the bloody war now occurring in the Ukraine. For example, the model I use and many others use to understand why strikes occur is called the Hicks miscalculation model. And it argues that impasses, strikes, and other forms of impasse, a war is a form of an impasse, um, occur because one side or the other side, or maybe both sides, are overly optimistic about what they think the outcome of that conflict will be, what the outcome of a strike will be, or in this case, what the outcome of the war will be. And I've been noticing many commentators, and I'm sympathetic to their claims, are arguing that what's going on here in the Ukraine is that Putin has greatly overestimated his power and the capabilities of the Soviet forces. I hope that's the case. In addition, I also make use of the Walton and McCarthy negotiation framework as I'm trying to sort of think through both the source of the Ukrainian conflict and what might happen. As you may recall, within the Walton and McCarthy framework, they argue that among the four key sub-processes, there's something they refer to as intra-organizational bargaining. Usually in the labor management context, that means bargaining within the union side about their goals or within the management side. And I've been thinking, just as the press and commentators have been speculating, that what might happen, again, I hope will happen in the Ukraine, is that Putin will face a massive erosion of support within his organization, in a sense, that intra-organizational bargaining will become severe and possibly lead to the end of the war, maybe even the possibly end of his rule. And that would come from, for example, his generals concluding that they're losing the war or that the consequences of a further prolonged war are costly to them personally or to their careers, or the oligarchs in Russia may well come to a similar conclusion. One might also speculate that maybe even more of the Russian population will come to that conclusion and expand upon the protests that have already been emerging. I'm not sure if any of that's going to happen. I'm not an expert on those foreign affairs, but I will say that it's helpful to me, at least, to use those two analytic notions to think about what's going on. But I'm also reminded of the issue I run into when I talk about strikes within my labor relations class. One can be thinking analytically about an impasse, but at the same time, one needs to remember the costs of a conflict. And in this case, the costs are an incredible amount of human misery. And I think it's possible, and I think it's appropriate, my career sort of hinges on this, that there's value to thinking analytically about events in labor relations, in this case, a conflict, while at the same time not lose sight of the human misery, the suffering that often goes along with conflicts. And in this case, unfortunately, is of massive proportion.